Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. In this video, I'm joined by Natalie Menton, one of Colorado's leading political investigators. Natalie is going to share information on an extremely controversial ballot measure that all Colorado voters will see on their November ballot. Well, Natalie, thank you for joining me today.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
Perfect. Well, Natalie, I'm very interested to hear about this unknown aspect of Proposition HH.
Yeah, and this is really like the battle of the year, what we've got going on here with the property tax issue, but it's been going for several years. The question we've got at this moment is, will your local government lose big this November because of Proposition HH? And it's one of the factors that's not being discussed as much as it should be. But considering property taxes are collected locally, it's the discussion that should be taking one of the top ranks here on what people are asking and what they know. So if we look back at when this bill was presented, first of all, we know it rammed through the legislature. They waited till the last minute, jammed it through. But there were districts who spoke out about it, even in that limited period of time. And I grabbed a list here from the Colorado Secretary of State's office, showing some of those different lobbyist groups. Some of them are very much in support of more government, such as the Special Districts Association, the State Fire Chiefs, Colorado Municipal League. These are groups that really work hand in hand with the government. And here, these districts were, as you see on the screen here, opposing Proposition HH. And there's a reason for that. And just to jump to these special districts, for people who don't know that term, because we just throw it around, assuming everybody knows, a lot of people don't know what it means. And that means water districts, sanitation districts, library districts, fire, there's health districts, ambulance districts. There's even more beyond that. You and I've covered Division of Local Affairs before, and how people can look up all these special districts. So it includes a lot of governments. The problem with these districts here is because their issue with Proposition HH, Senate Bill 303, is that there's a long list of ifs, ands, and buts that are included with this bill. There's a reason why it's nearly 50 pages of government money shuffling. It's what it really comes down to go through all of the details. A lot to digest. That was really a big part of the problem with them throwing this bill up at the last minute. Even the state legislature had problems being able to understand what was in there before they were asked to vote. I end up, as you say, as you called an investigator. So I do keep an eye on a lot of government meetings. And I can speak firsthand, knowing that in recent meetings, these special districts have referred to Proposition HH as the game Plinko, which for people who go back to the days of Price is Right and Bob Barker, I mean, that's going back, that's like childhood, that's been off the air for a long time. But there was a game on Price is Right where people would go up, climb up these stairs, get on top of this platform thing, and then drop a chip down, a game, and it would go through these pegs. And basically, as you see in the picture there, you could either win $0 or maybe $5,000 or $500 or $100. Well, these lobbyists, who again are generally very pro-government, right, have nicknamed Proposition HH Plinko because it resembles this game of where it's a crapshoot, basically what you're going to end up with. I grabbed a couple charts here and gave citation of where these came from. It's a Special Districts Association. And they've got a one-pager, but it is so long with all of the steps and options and whether you qualify for something and whether the special district would get these backfills, that I had to break it into 3 frames. So you'll see here, it basically does my district get refill based upon, first of all, do I qualify as what type of district? Because what the legislature did there at the last minute is they picked winners and losers. They had carve outs for certain districts. Then, depending on whether the population was under 300,000 or over 300,000, whether you'd get money. If your revenue was under 20% or over 20%. And as I slide through, without going into a lot of detail, I've given, again, the reference here. It's at the Special Districts Association. They've even got a whole tab for the Senate Bill 23-303 property tax resources. So it's real easy to find. You don't even have to jump through a bunch of things to find these documents. Basically, the point being, there is all of these different mechanisms where the money gets filtered through that property tax backfill, and whether you qualify or not, and to what percentage. Now, the big end of all of this, the big picture view of this, most people like local government to be as close to them as possible, right? And these are districts that, again, are providing fire, library, different things like that. Prop HH is taking control of that, of our local tax money, whether you're a consumer or tenant, whatever it may be. You are contributing into the property tax system one way or another, directly or indirectly. It's taking that money that is being, right now at this moment, directed to those local agencies that provide services, and now being put in the hands of state elected state organizations, departments that are going to be choosing whether you qualify for a certain amount of money or not, based upon the criteria. What that does is removes that local control. I imagine that's certainly one of many reasons that the local special districts have lobbied against this, as was evidenced in the slide I showed, and the concern that exists about it now. I hope they will stand up and put a stop to Proposition HH. This is certainly a way that's going to affect services, affect that local control of our tax money, and for the state to have thrown up this as a solution with bare minimum stakeholding. And let me go on that for a minute. I have talked personally to the head of the Colorado Fire Chiefs. I have talked to the head of West Metro Fire, which is a large district serving a good chunk of the western suburbs. They have described to me in detail how little the stakeholding there was. The state legislators did not reach out to the special districts to talk about this bill. They shoved it through and then apologized after the fact. Sorry, we didn't get in touch with you and talk about this. So, it's a variety of reasons. So going back to, there's no reason, no question as to why the special districts or other local governments should be really opposed to this measure and taking care of the solution at the local level where it belongs.
So just so I understand correctly, you're saying that if Proposition HH passes, it's going to basically pick and choose which special districts are going to be funded with this state backfill, that these taxpayer money is going to be funneled to different organizations depending on these elaborate equations.
Yes, there's a pool of money. What that money does is first hands it out to special interests. Frankly, that's about the best way to say it. And then the backfill gets filtered down through these smaller districts that really just were not the noisiest wheel, the squeakiest wheel. So, I've talked to certain districts one-on-one, so I made sure that I got the information from the horse's mouth. And I know clearly how displeased they are with Proposition HH. But I don't think the voters and the taxpayers understand that. There's a statement within Proposition HH Blue Book that implies that there's these local caps in place, that these protections are in place. But the voters don't understand that right now that decision making, that local control is being taken out of the local district's hand. Those local elected officials they put into office and being put now into the state's authority. I think we've seen a consistent theme this year of the removal of local control, except when it works in the state's benefit. Otherwise, they don't care at all about it. And, the land use bills, now we've got this property taxation issue. It seems to be matter of fact, with the land use bills we've talked about in the past, there was very little stakeholding with those either. So the people at the Capitol seem to have a complete disconnect with the local government that voters have put in place, seem to be just skipping over them.
Well, like you said, somebody's going to benefit. Some of these special districts, I can only imagine helped write this proposition, write this Senate bill back earlier this year. And it seems like they're the ones who are going to win big. And some of our local governments can lose very big as well. If Proposition HH passes. So it'd be very interesting to see small local governments across the state, whether it's a sanitation district or a fire district or a library district, come out against Proposition HH. That'll be very interesting to watch for, and really kind of illustrates the behind the scenes of how this legislation, these initiatives are written by special interests, by specific groups that are going to benefit tremendously at the expense of not just the taxpayers but other local governments.
Yeah, and if you look at the campaign finance on this, I think we've already seen a sample of who is coming out ahead on this and who got the short end of the stick. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, let's do another video talking about who's funding, especially when more campaign finance data comes out. I think that could be really compelling.
Yeah,
Oh, oh,
why do we have campaign money coming in from DC and New York and some entities that don't know, so anyway.
well, I think the big message, I'm taking away from this is that if Proposition HH passes, some of our local governments are really going to lose some of their revenue.
Voters will lose their local voice, their local dollars are at risk. Just the list goes on and on about reasons why not to vote for Proposition HH.
Wow. Well, thank you, Natalie, for providing this kind of behind the scenes investigation, if you will, into how Proposition HH is affecting some of these special districts. And I didn't realize some of the outcry that we've been seeing since this bill was introduced earlier this year. So thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate your work.
Glad to share this other side of Prop HH.
Great. Well, we'll see you next time.